My name is Allan Freedman. I am from Nothing Left, but I'm recording this little video interview for the Australian Jewish Association. Sitting next to me is Devorah Halberstam, who is from the United States, and when you hear her, you will hear that she's got a very broad New York accent, which is very, very nice to hear. But she's an expert in terrorism, and unfortunately it all started because her son was murdered on the Brooklyn Bridge. How long ago, Devorah?
On March 1st, 1994.
Okay, so quite some years ago. People may be familiar with the story, but they can look that up.
It was a revenge attack for what was taking place in the Middle East.
Okay. But Devorah is in Australia, and she is an expert on terrorism. And so we're just going to have a very quick chat, particularly since we've had an incident in Melbourne, Australia, in the last few days. Now, you know something about this, Devorah.
Yep.
Tell us.
We actually were out on an outing because my children live here in Australia, and they were taking us out for the day. And so my son-in-law had said, well, let's go and walk on Federation Square. And we're actually passing right on Flinders Street, the station, and I see it right there because I've been here before, so I recognize it. He goes, let's park the car right here and walk. And my husband wanted to get Starbucks coffee. There's one on Elizabeth and right there, which is exactly where it happened. And my daughter, I don't believe anything is by chance. She goes, no, let's go to the, what's it called, Dockers. Is that called?
Docklands.
The Docklands. See, I'm American and I'm a New Yorker. She goes, let's go to the Docklands. And I go, oh, yeah, I heard that it's very nice there. So we actually turn on Google, and even though it was kind of bringing us back to Flinders Station, and we're like almost ready to give up. She goes, no, we're going to the Dockland. And how lucky were we on the way back after we finished there? We're coming through, we're turning back around, and we're coming right through the city. And as we're coming through the city, we're passing Flinders Street, we see that the street, we can't turn to buy the Starbucks. Right on Elizabeth Street, they close off the street. We never imagined anything took place. And then we get a text from somebody. We get a text from my son. Ma, did you see what just happened on Flinders Street? And we look at it and we go, no, we don't believe this. We don't believe somebody, and it happened to be my father's yard site that day. I said, Daddy is watching over us, because literally we were there 5 to 10 minutes before this attack took place. We saw the thing, the bodies strewn all over the place. I mean, it was mind-boggling to see this with your own eyes. It's, you know what, for a person like me who knows what terrorism tastes like, I need to use that word. I know what it tastes like. I know the smell of terrorism. That's how much I sense it. Being there at that moment was very unnerving.
And
very unnerving.
Would you call this an act of terrorism? I mean,
well, look, you know, I don't want to step.
Is that for our authorities to say?
I feel that way. This is your government. I am only a guest in this country. If it would be in the United States of America, hell yes. But it's you know, it's for your government to decide. They have their own guidelines, their own basis for it. They know the individuals. They've interrogated him, etc., etc. It's not for me to.
Okay, and you're very active in this field in the United States,
yes,
aren't you?
I am.
So tell us what sort of work do you do as a result of what happened?
Well, what I do is I lecture to law enforcement bodies. That includes local, state, and federal government. Not only in the United States, I do it even with other countries who reach out to me. I don't reach out to them. That meant the European countries. Even I've met members of law enforcement in Australia as well, and it's important. That's the only good news in terrorism today. I would say countries around the world are in touch with each other, because it has unfortunately brought the world into a closer place, because people have to. There's no way you could stay removed from it. You need to be speaking to each other, especially if you're democracies, and you need to. One thing we did learn: there is really no isolated. Even when, until this very day, I get ants in my pants when we talk about lone gunmen. I don't believe there is such a thing. There is, whether you're a card-carrying member, you were influenced by, you were inspired by, somebody fed you, and you're part of that larger network.
Yeah.
It's all a network, and it's not just in the United States or in Australia or in France or Germany or Europe. Look at 9/11. They came from all countries of the world. I mean, not all, most from Saudi Arabia. Nevertheless, we see that that's just the way it is in France. And we see it in Spain, we see it, somehow there are connections. It's either because, most likely it's because of the internet, and they have access because today we have so much, the technology boom. You have to remember in 1994 when my son was murdered, we didn't even have cell phones, we're just brand new. Imagine the boom of technology. Today, people just text each other. There's stuff that you can't even trace. I mean, we have Facebook. I had a death threat on Facebook that the FBI had to go in to court to fight Facebook on, and they wouldn't divulge.
Didn't they?
No, they would not. The IP address on it. So until this very day, we still don't know. No. And the FBI did this completely independent, even of my now. I read about it in the newspaper, that they went into court, because any court proceeding that goes on there are always court reporters that are outside every courtroom because they want to know. And it was, but I mean, I know I got the death threat because we had to pass it on to law enforcement, but that's what I mean. I think that technology companies are not, I've written about this in articles, hacking against terrorism. I've written articles on it. I believe very strongly that they have to be pushed against the wall, Google and Facebook and all of them, because this is how they make their money and how they become billion-dollar companies. And at the same time, this is how the terrorists have the freedom to move around in a world where we can't find where they are.
Yeah. And they say that the law enforcement agencies have to be lucky every time, and the terrorists only have to be lucky once, don't they?
That's in the word of was it Lenin who said that? I'm trying to recall.
So do you think that the law enforcement agencies, I mean, are they managing to keep ahead of the terrorists?
I think so. I actually think it's not being ahead. Nobody's ahead of them. Criminals, like terrorists, are like ordinary criminals. Use ordinary. They want to kill people. Criminals have, but people, you can't reinvent the wheel. That's what we all learned in law enforcement. It's basically the same criminal behavior, so they get caught somewhere down the line. Having said that, they were way ahead of us. So we're always catching up. And there's always something new. Let's figure out something new about how. So in my mind, I think like a terrorist. I'm always thinking about how they would think. I don't have to think like law enforcement. We have enough people fighting them. It's trying to figure out how they would think or what would be their next move. It's like playing a game of chess, really.
And in Australia, are you doing work here? Do you?
I know the law enforcement here. I've met with them. I am not doing work here, not other than knowing about what they do, being in touch with them, and that's it. If I get called to it, then
I mean, we're obviously quite worried, and the events of Flinders Street were somewhat shocking. Even though, fortunately,
you've had it last year at Christmas time, I think.
That's right. This is the second time.
I think Australia is doing a fabulous job. I got to say that, because I follow it from America since I have children who live there, and I've watched how they wrote new laws. I've spoken to different journalists in this country. I'm fascinated that they're aware of it, and I know the different ways the government does look at people out of the country. That means I'm almost certain when I say this that if you come in to this country, if you're an Australian citizen, and you go out of the country to study or to fight in another country in terms you come back in, they rip up your passport. They can't throw you away because we keep our own people. Australia, it's our own. You're not going to throw away our own, but we can't tear up our passport. And I know they do that. Okay. I mean, I was told by someone in law enforcement. So they're keeping tabs, but there's no perfection in this world. You're going to only see where the terrorists have bypassed law enforcement, and we have a terrorist attack. But how many have they thwarted? You'll never know, because they don't want people to have fear or to be afraid. But they are well aware of who and what is going on. I mean, this is a constant. I don't know that we'll see it in our lifetime. I think I will not. I think you will not. I think we will not see it in our lifetime. I think this will go on for many years before we can get rid of it. I just think so.
Well, thanks to people like you. We're hopefully making some progress. I want to thank you for your time this morning. We're speaking with Devorah Halberstam, clearly from New York, and she's doing a fantastic job. And we look forward to keeping track of what you're doing, and hope that you have all the power to continue. Thanks for joining us.